Hello, everyone. So in this video, we want to share some thoughts on a pretty powerful alignment happening for the next week or so. We have Venus in Cancer opposing all of the Capricorn planets, and then Mars in Aries. So this is a T-square. We also have Juno in Libra. So amongst the Juno in Libra, Venus in Cancer, all the Capricorn planets, Mars in Aries, we have a grand cross. Venus moves the quickest. Mars is pretty slow right now. All the Capricorn planets are pretty slow. Juno moves second quickest. So it's going to take Juno another couple weeks or so to move through the rest of Libra. So for the next week, we're going to have all of these planets in alignment with each other. In particular, Juno and Venus are going to both lock on Saturn and on Mars. So let's talk about this configuration. And before I do, let me just share a chart so you can see what I'm speaking about here. So it's probably sideways, but you get the idea. You can see here that Venus is in Cancer. In this chart, it's in the 6th house, but that'll move according to where you're at in the moment. All the Capricorn in the 12th, and you see down below Mars in Aries and Juno in Libra. When we look at Cancer interfacing with Capricorn, and that's the correct way to think of this, because Cancer is happening quickly. Venus is moving through Cancer. So you can think of the Cancer energy as sort of like a dynamic that's unfolding in the context of a more slow, overarching Capricornian period. This interface really speaks to the relationship between form and structure, and the meaning, the fluidity, that which is held and purposed within the structure. So Cancer is the family. Cancer is the emotional imprinting. It's our relationships with each other. It's what creates sense of safety and security. It's the tenderness and love and security that we share with one another in a familial way. It says, I'm safe to be me. I'm accepted and loved as I am, no matter what. I belong here. Whereas Capricorn, we can think of it as the familial structure. It's like your family structure. It's your family lineage. It's the temporary roles that we all play in this human experience: mother, father, daughter, son, etc. It might be the nation you live in, right? You live in a certain country, and in that country, there are people that play different governmental roles, and there are these different rules that exist in this country, and this country has borders and divisions and all that stuff. Whereas Cancer would be your identification as a being within that country, your emotional identification with being held and contained within this particular nation or within any particular structure. So I'm an American, I identify as that, would be Cancer relative to Capricorn. This is my mother and my father, and I'm at home here. Cancer relative to the structural reality of Capricorn, one's particular family. And when you look at Venus in Capricorn, it really does speak specifically to our relationships. And so the core relationship dynamics of Venus in Cancer, rather, not Capricorn, speaks to how we are giving and sharing and communicating, exchanging, all of Venus things. Venus, when it comes to the external relational side of Venus, it's all about communication, getting needs met, learning how to support one another. But it's all conditional, which really means we all have different needs. And so we all learn through the Venus function, what are our needs and how are we able to support the needs of other people? I might not be able to provide for all of your needs, and that's okay. And you may not be able to provide for all of my needs. So the key with Venus in general is this learning journey of how to come into balance and a peaceful acceptance and thus appreciation of the abundance that we are to one another, specifically through letting go of expectations and constructs that hold one another in these places that say, I need you to be this for me. I need me to be this for you, because the Venus journey wants us to discover, it wants us to communicate, it wants us to listen and actually learn what is balance here. And balance really being this dynamic state of listening and caring about what really is enlivening and supportive to each individual specific reality, unique reality. So then Venus in Cancer really focuses on the need in relationship to feel like whatever's going on, whether, you know, all of your needs are being met, whether your expectations are fulfilled. Cancer, tenderness, care. In Cancer, we have that appreciation for the fact that we all need to feel love. We all need to feel like we belong. We all need to feel safe to have our needs, to feel what we feel, regardless of whether those around us resonate or can meet it or share the same values. Because Venus is never, ever, ever about, here we are, 100%, the same value. Like the perfect relationship is never about all of our needs are getting met. It's actually the Venusian journey of learning about one another and finding more ground, more stability through that learning journey, finding our authentic place together, not holding ourselves in these unrealistic and unsupportive, unloving roles and expectations. So the Cancer dynamic is really speaking to what are our needs to feel loved and cared for. And relative to all the Capricorn, which is heavy, deep soul work, unraveling a lot of our conditioning, bringing up deeper dynamics of shame and guilt, and it's just really restructuring our lives on this planet to more alignment. This really says, and I'll give an analogy to best describe this. You're with your family and you're in the kitchen. You're doing that thing, aren't you? Are you mooning them? And you know, you decide this beautiful plan to make this meal and to feed the whole family and all of your neighbors, and you have this idea, and you're going to use your most beautiful china and, you know, dress a certain way, and this person's going to sit here and this person's going to sit there, and afterwards we'll all drink tea in the living room. These very nice ideas. Now comes time for dinner and everyone shows up, and like the kid has a gluten allergy, and you know, the mother actually has indigestion. And like none of the plans that you made are actually relevant to the actual needs of the moment. And so we can respond to that feeling, you know, it's all ruined, we can't have the togetherness that we wanted. Or to really work with that Cancer energy is to like, okay, how can we accommodate to create more care, more nourishment, more invitedness for everyone? And so then the Capricornian structure, which is Capricorn is always something that grows in time. And so there's a sense of, you know, we're building family, we're building love, we're building connection, we're building relationship, we're building, this can be with your work, with your healing practice, any area in your life. The Cancer Venus says, slow down and feel what's actually being asked for. And ultimately, the whole world is inside of ourselves. So the deeper teaching is slow down and actually ask what is being asked for in here. What's needed? What's the most delicate, tender part of my own being actually needing right now? And when we can touch base with that, it can easily bring up this sense of, yes, but I have all these expectations and roles and constructs set in place. Capricorn, all this Capricorn retrograde, a part of what that really does symbolize is the dissolving, the deconstruction of all the constructs in our mind. And together, it just really pushes us to question, where is our safety? Where does the feeling of being supported and cared for and held and growing in a solid way in our lives, with what we're doing, with whom we are? And this signature, and this is really strong for the next few days, it really says, soften. soften into an internal sense of safety and permission, first and foremost, having compassion and care for whatever you're feeling. Venus is all about feelings. This is something that I find is a very, Jeffrey Wolf Green taught this, and I think it's a very important distinction. Cancer is emotions, but Venus is feelings, right? Think about it. Venus is all about the senses, feeling. And so here, be feeling your emotions, feeling what's happening inside of you. Feel what are emotions? Like, emotions are just their energy. It's just passing. There's no understanding inherently as to what they're saying or what they mean. But the Venusian function has this ability to become embodied, to inhabit, to become still. That's the whole Taurian aspect to Venus. It's I'm feeling this. Okay. And so we have self-intimacy with Venus in Cancer. Do you have any thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I think one of the big themes of 2020 with regard to Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter, and the current retrograde is being magnified by this opposition from Venus. And, when I think about all the things that make us feel safe and secure, like from an initial foundation, you're born into a family and your mother and father take care of you and they feed you and they clothe you until you're an adult. And then you get a job, right? You get a job, and then that provides income so that you can feed and clothe and nourish yourself. All those years you were a child, you weren't worried about working. And then this idea that you find a partner and you get married, and that person is meant to love, honor, protect, take care of you for the remainder of your life. Like this whole thing, like till death do we part. These are very Capricorn structural realities. They're reinforced by capitalism. Right, if you don't have immediate family, you actually have to buy childcare. If you don't have like the extended tribal family, if you don't have a husband, you need to hire, someone to come and fix something in your house. I'm not meaning to be, but you get what I'm saying? Like, there are these structures and these roles that we then depend upon for our safety and security. And during this period, particularly Venus opposite Pluto, Venus opposite Saturn, square to Mars, the dynamics that get lit up within the confines of those particular structures and roles when they're being challenged, when we can't go to the job or we're fired from the job, when the marriage ends, when parents die or family members die, when all of these particular structures that have meant our own feeling of comfort or nourishment, or when we've grown up with a childhood where we didn't have family that was dependable, that was stable or secure. We grew up in a dysfunctional household, or we grew up and we didn't ever master how to get a job and take care of ourselves. So the ongoing struggle of feeling impoverished and without power and self-authority, like all of these things. We don't get married, and so we live our lives in fear of the aloneness and being alone, that there's no one going to take care of us in our end of days. I think the real revolution that's possible with Juno in this T-square, when we see all of these roles stretched to their capacity, challenged in the ways that they've held up our psyche as a collective and as individuals in our own lives, however this is playing out, there is something actually that can be born inside of us, something that is very tender and very new, and that actually doesn't know its way inside of the world. And this is maybe a preview of what could be coming in in 2021 and beyond, in the age of Aquarius, and which is that, well, what would it be like if you walked up to that man, who you haven't married, who you haven't even dated him at this point, and you said, I'm looking at you, you are going to love, honor, and respect me. You're going to take care of me to the end of days. Or if you were to look at people that you meet as kin, as family, and feel like, for this elder woman, wow, I feel responsible for taking care of her to the end of her life. You know, like how society might change if those roles actually drop away, if the function of like, you do this to produce income, if these structures begin to change inherently and we change with it, both finding our own internal sense of self-nourishment, self-authority, self-care, while simultaneously feeling the connection that actually everyone is our kin. And to some extent, those roles have become outmoded and outdated. And we no longer choose to reinforce the fear and scarcity and commodification of our human family within those roles any longer. And I feel like there's a big opening that's possible when we feel the discomfort of the present moment, which is the ways in which those roles are being dissolved and the ways in which we are like trying just in very infantile ways to meet new parts of ourselves and recognize that in others, and heal the scars that have come from being capitalized, being commodified. I mean, marriage was originally a commodity. A woman was sold to a man and belonged to him and literally didn't have her own identity or authority until the 1970s. And so that scar of both scarcity and fear of possession is still largely being healed within the psyche of men and women. And I feel like this transit, even though it's a week, you know, it's a week in time, it's like unearthing some of the qualities of those particular archetypes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll just add a piece on Juno. So of course, Juno in Libra, that's ruled by Venus, which is in Cancer. And so wherever we have Juno, it's where we have the idea of contract, commitment. The whole notion of these commitments are really one where there's a sense of in making this commitment, I'm devoting myself to my own spirituality. There's a growth that is promised to occur through the nature of, and this can be a commitment to a relationship, to a job, to a business practice. But we have to understand, what is it you're committing to, right? You're not committing to a role. I had a dream not long ago, well, long ago feels like at this point, not long after Ella was born, where I was told, where there is a role, there cannot be any love. And so the essence of the commitment has to actually be to something that's underneath the form. Because if our ideas of what we're committing to are just in the structure, then we're actually allowing ourselves to become enslaved by something that doesn't allow us to be fluid and connected to our own emotions in the moment. But if our commitment's to a principle, like to a principle of devotion, okay, it's like, then there's fluidity for the present moment to reveal what's true, for needs to be realized, for communication to happen, for sharing and listening. If the commitment is, we're gonna wake up together, that's great. That's powerful. And to really take that commitment seriously, that means whoever you're with or whatever you're doing, you're not going to be half-assed about it. You're not going to be half-hearted. You're not going to end it halfway. But it doesn't necessarily say much about the day-to-day specific conditional relative experience and the needs and the agreements and the decisions and the communications that will unfold throughout the journey. So this Juno in Libra over the next week or so, especially as it comes to square Saturn later this week and Mars, it actually is really bringing up to reflect and connect deeply with what fundamentally am I committing to within myself first and foremost. Juno does have a lot of correlation to the whole journey of spiritual awakening. They speak a lot about sacred sexuality, but what's really held underneath that is the awakening of our inherent life force energy through directing ourselves, through committing ourselves to a greater principle of truth. So it really is a time to get stable and clear in what's our fundamental commitment. and to allow all of our relationships, all of the different aspects of our life, people, places, and things that we are involved with, that we are committed to be a vehicle for this deeper devotion in our life, so that everything is held in a way of sanctity. And we don't allow ourselves to fall asleep. We don't allow ourselves to think, okay, good, I got the 2.5 children, the car, and the TV, done. These transits in general, this time, but especially like this little window, you know, coming into the first couple weeks of September, it's really asking us to stay awake.
And be committed to love. Ultimately, that's all that we really are, and the only thing that goes with us. So, may you be in love.